Hello, everybody. Mike Donahue, Brian May, Groomed.Connect. How you guys doing today? Hope everybody's doing good. Getting ready to go back to school. It is back to school time, Brian. Do you believe that?
It is back to school time, and I'm pretty much out of touch with that whole world because there's nobody in my house that goes back to school.
Well, I do go back to school, but I go back as a speaker. As a speaker. He's quite the motivational speaker.
Yeah, yep. If you need to know where to find Mike, go out to Kearney and turn toward the Platte River. He's got a van down there by the Platte River. Almost made you spit your coffee
Oh my
out.
God. Hey, I got a haircut. Here's why. Because I look like Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. I was getting a little crazy of the hair, like trying to throw a football, trying to live the old days. So, Brian, we're going to start out this segment with a couple of jokes. I Googled, or not Googled, I went to Chat GPT, whatever it's called, and I asked it to tell me 5 cult jokes. And we're just going to give you 2 of them because the other ones aren't that great. All right, here we go. This is my favorite. I'll do mine first. I joined a cult once. Worst potluck ever. Everyone brought Kool-Aid. Man,
Hey,
here's your
fun fact on that one. You know that Jim Jones,
yeah,
the famous cult leader with the Kool-Aid,
yeah.
he was an AG pastor.
No way.
Way.
Way. Where did he go to college? Or did he do his Berean?
I don't know. I just knew that he was at one point in his career an AG pastor. So
Oh.
yeah,
He probably went to North Central. I'll bet you anything.
yeah. I don't know.
So did Jim
He was
Baker. Jim
probably
Baker went to North Central. So did Tammy Faye.
did he? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean,
All
he
right,
was too young to come out of cadre, but that would have checked. But anyway,
here's your favorite cult joke. Joining a cult is kind of like subscribing to a streaming service. At first, it seems free, but eventually they want all your time, money, and friends. But boom.
man,
All
that one
right,
hits home, don't it?
there's our cult jokes. I
Don't
gotta
it?
do one
Listen to
more.
me.
Why don't cult members ever play hide and seek? Because good luck hiding when everyone's wearing the same matching robes. We didn't wear robes, but we wear a lot of other things that were
Yeah, a
all
lot of other
right.
things.
Yeah. So, Brian, we are starting a new service here at Groomed.Connect. Actually started already. Playlist up on this channel, a new playlist called Groomed.Help. Groomed.Help. And it's going to be for bringing in people like Cheryl and Eileen to do some teaching. We are going to be having a Zoom call now and then that Melissa Holcomb is going to be heading up, and we had our first one last week, which was great. But I thought what we could do is actually have these people on as teachers, and do both. Like you have the Zoom, but also do this kind of thing where we have people on. This first week, we're going to be having a guy named Steve Hayes, a good friend of mine. He's an ex AG pastor and been through a lot of this same stuff. And the idea on this thing is not to you know have any kind of agenda to try to steer anybody in any direction. But there are people that are atheists, people that don't want anything to do with Jesus or God. They think the whole thing's crazy. There's people that love Jesus but can't stand the church. There's people that still are trying to do church and love Jesus. Everybody's in a different place. And we
Right.
want to honor that. We don't want to steer anybody in any kind of direction. But at times, we will have people that are, pro-church or whatever, how to integrate back into church kind of thing for those people. And if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to watch it. So we didn't want to put this on the main channel. We wanted to do something that was kind of an offshoot so people could make a choice, right? They could still watch this, and we're going to be telling people stories and that kind of thing. But if something piques their interest, like, hey, we're having this guest on Groomed.Help, they can go over there, watch that podcast, and maybe get some insight for what they're dealing with. And so it's not pushing anything down anybody's throat. It's just making things available for different folks that come from different backgrounds. What do you think of that, Brian?
I think it's a great idea. We've said all along that we want to do everything we can help people to begin to process. And, by all means, this is not doesn't rise to the level of therapy, but I think we know a lot of people who have a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience processing their way out of all of this mess that we've all been a part of. And I think it's really good to get that angle out there and help people.
Right. Awesome. So, yeah. So we're going to be doing that, and it's starting this week.
And
So we'll put the
right.
link to this podcast with Steve Hayes in the description here, and so you can go check that out if you want to watch that.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Moose Butt. So
yeah, actually, we're going to be talking about Chi Alpha today, so that's kind of appropriate. Actually, it's probably inappropriate.
well,
Yikes.
yikes.
So Brian, Donna Barrett got up at the General Council of the Assemblies of God and addressed the Chi Alpha fiasco. So why don't you unpack that for us a little bit?
Yeah, she actually addressed a couple of fiascos, but we want to talk about Chi Alpha today. Now, I want to reiterate that we really appreciate the action that the Georgia District and the National Office took with Genie. But post that, we watched Donna Barrett address the General Counsel on some scandals. And I mean, I guess all I can say is that old habits are hard to break. Another prefacing comment I want to make is, look, I understand that we live in a litigious world and that because of the existence of lawyers that people have to be careful what they say. Sometimes I believe some things transcend those concerns. And one of those is when young men, young women, old men, old women, anyone, children are, and that abuse is facilitated by authorities that should have and could have done something about it. And I believe that this whole Chi Alpha scandal was part of that. If you want to know about the Chi Alpha scandal, we'll put a link in the comments, but there's a website called Chi Alpha and the Lion's Den that details a series of events that involved Chi Alpha leaders and a registered sexual offender named Daniel Savala, who has been arrested, and a grooming and abuse sort of cult that was happening in Texas under the nose of this ministry. We don't want to get in and detail all of those things here. We have, but Donna Barrett got up.
And Brian, what's her title? She's a secretary or something like that?
She is the general secretary. Yeah. And I'm not going to go through and detail everything she said. I'm not going to go like fact check all of her comments, but I would like to react to her comments from the standpoint of what maybe it means to the victims of this scandal. And be clear, there was serious sexual abuse going on here. There was one pastor who took his own sons to Daniel Savala's joint and participated in the abuse of his own sons. So this is like really...
He's going to jail too, right? Didn't that
he
guy
is going to jail, yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. But as I watched that, I had researched this whole thing. I had read through that website. I thought it was interesting. She said at one point in the comments, she said, yeah, there's certain websites and podcasts out there that might not have all the facts.
We have the fact, baby.
We've talked about this. Julie Royce has talked about this. There's a lot of, like I mentioned, Chi Alpha and the Lion's Den has well documented this. But I'm gonna characterize what she said was a mea culpa, because what she said numerous times was, we feel really bad for the victims. We feel really bad for the victims. We feel really bad for the victims. It's like, sorry friends, no shit. You're not taking any stand there feeling bad for these victims. If you don't feel bad for these victims, then maybe you're a psychopath. So I mean, it's like, great, thank you for saying that. There is one particular point I want to draw out here, and I think what we want to talk about today, Mike, is taking responsibility and accountability and these kinds of situations. And Donna Barrett at one point, she said in 2018 they got their first complaint about Daniel Savala. Now, let me paint a picture here. So the Assemblies of God is set up so that there's this national council, and they're in charge of like doctrine and all this kind of stuff and taking money, I guess. I don't know. But they don't mess in the general daily affairs of all of their districts all across the world. I think there's like 66 of them. So it's a loose confederation. That's convenient for them because it gives them a place to hide. And I'm going to paint that right now. So she said in 2018 they got their first complaint that this Daniel Savala guy, who was a registered sexual offender, he'd been convicted in 2012 in Alaska. was a registered sexual offender, that he was um, part that he was attending a pastor, a guy named Eli Stewart, who is one of the main bad guys in this whole thing, his church. And they received a complaint, and Donna Barrett said that the general counsel warned the district. Okay, those were her words. Now, what I know about what happened on that, and this is from Chi Alpha and the Lion's Den, is that they reached out to the National Chi Alpha office, and people reached out to the National Chi Alpha office in 2018. And there was a gentleman by the name of E. Scott Martin, who was the head of Chi Alpha at that time, the national head of Chi Alpha at that time. And he replied back that there was no evidence of any wrongdoing, that no action would be taken. And he actually said, this is not within our purview. So,
What? Okay.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Well,
You
no,
got a question?
why? Like, what? They pushed it back to the district? Is that what they were doing?
They pushed it back to the district, yeah. And the district didn't do anything, because it wasn't until, I believe, 2023 that Daniel Savala that they went to the authorities and that he was actually arrested.
So it took 5 years.
It
5 years of kids being
took 5
abused,
years.
people being hurt.
Right.
5 years.
Right.
Wow.
Right. So there's really two points here. One is, now we're talking about this in 2025, and the AG is putting, I believe, the best possible spin on it. Yeah, they're talking about it. Good on them. They're not hiding it, but they're putting the best possible spin on it, saying like, hey, we didn't know until 2023 this was going on. Basically, they're covering their asses, I think, in this statement. But what's more disturbing is what happened at the time in 2018. Imagine this. Imagine someone calls up the district office and says, my pastor just taught last week that Jesus is the devil's brother. The National Assembly, the national authorities are going to come down on that guy, right? And they're going to say, hey, you can't teach this stuff. We're going to get involved. Okay, now juxtapose that against, hey, you know what? There is a registered sexual offender who is attending a Chi Alpha leader's church. And there were multiple other reports of him being at camps and retreats and those kinds of things. And you're E. Scott Martin, and you say, you know what, that's not in our purview. You got to go talk to the authorities in the district, which, by the way, the authorities in the district were some of the very people involved in this whole, I'm going to call it a trafficking scheme. That doesn't sit well with me. What do you think about that, Mike?
No, my gosh, that's ridiculous. That's what I mean. If you follow Matthew 18, and I hate even bringing this up, but if they, because they will, that's their criteria, right? They're going to say, well, Matthew 18. So you went to the district, found out that they were part of this thing. They were doing this too. They were part of it. I don't know the exact details. You know more than I do. But then you push it up to the next level, right? That's what Matthew 18 says. You don't get the right answers, you push it up the ladder, right? Well, they pushed it up the ladder and they kicked it back down the ladder, saying, our hands, we wash our hands of this because it has to be done on, that way. That's ridiculous. That's basically dodging the bullet and getting out of Dodge so you don't have to deal with it. That's
right.
Crap.
Right. To me, it shows I can't think of the word, a critical, deadly lack of concern, because we're talking about a registered sexual offender being involved, being around college students in a college ministry. Now, maybe they didn't have all the details at that time, that they were actually sending these guys to be mentored, by him.
But
Maybe they
again,
didn't have
Brian,
those details.
it's when there's smoke, there's fire. Like, you don't mess with that. It's not like you don't need all the details. All you need to do is see smoke and go, oh, we need to do this. We need to get into this. And especially these days, you're talking about 2018. You're not talking about 1985. You're talking about 2018, where this is in our consciousness. We, as a society, we know what to do now. We know what to do now. Give me a break. I'm getting fired up.
Yeah, and that's I'm this is something worth being fired up about, right? I don't understand why in 2018 they did not go to the Texas district. They didn't get on a plane and fly to Texas and say, okay, who is this
The
Daniel
hell is
Savala
going
guy?
on, guys?
What is going on here? And you know
Yeah.
what? Maybe there was no evidence, but maybe you need to be a little bit more curious, because these are college students. This is a college ministry. It's under the purview of the Assembly of God. And if you want to wash your hands of it, national office, and say this is a district matter, tough. We're not talking about, again, we're not talking about a matter of doctrine here or polity. We're talking about the potential for sexual abuse. And if they'd have gone down there and said, you know what, we looked and we didn't see anything, we were curious, we questioned people, we had an investigation because we felt as the national office that we needed to break through that wall of, the federation or whatever, and investigate this for the good of the people that we allege to serve, then fine. But they didn't do that. I mean, E. Scott Martin said, not my purview. And so what happened was, over the course of the next 5 years, multiple cases of abuse happened. This Daniel Savala guy was at camps. He was at retreats. There were pictures of him with Chi Alpha leaders all over the place. And like I said, it wasn't until 2023. Well, let me just read. In 2019, there were pictures of Savala with a lot of Chi Alpha leaders at a leadership retreat in Colorado. In 2020, Eli Stewart was promoting Daniel Savala at colleges. In 2022, there was a Chi Alpha podcast that referred to Daniel Savala as Papa Daniel.
Gross.
Yeah, totally gross. In 2023, the website Chi Alpha and the Lion's Den launched. Christianity Today picked it up. Julie Royce picked it up. The Waco Tribune picked it up. All of a sudden, the heat came. The authorities got involved. Not the church. The authorities got involved. Daniel Savala was arrested. Eli Stewart was arrested. Several other pastors were arrested. And, then they finally dealt with it. But to your point, Mike, 5 years. I mean, there was smoke in 2018, and it took them 5 years to get to that point. But what we're talking about today is what happened at the General Council a couple of weeks ago. As I said, Donna Barrett got up and said, we feel bad for the victims. What do you think they should have said in 2 weeks ago at General Council, Mike?
Well, like you said, there's, we live in a world that sues everybody, and, there's lawyers waiting in the wings on this thing. But I think, like you said, also, it transcends that. Like, I think you get up and you say, listen, we dropped the ball, and dropping the ball is opening yourself up for litigation. I get that. But again, I mean, they did drop the ball. They dropped the ball. There was smoke. There was kids being abused. There was stuff going on. And it triggers me a little bit, because back in, like I said, on these podcasts, back in 2008, back in 2009, and beyond, I was talking to Rick Lormer. I was talking to Rod Whitlock. I was talking to others about Genie, about these abuse situations, about how she conducts herself. And nobody was listening, because again, I don't know what the draw with Daniel Savala was. I don't know if he was that charismatic or what made them look the other way when they saw smoke. But with Genie, it's the numbers, it's the pizzazz, it's the show, right? It's the big dragon on the stage with her, dragon slayers and all that crap, right? So they're just mesmerized by these stupid things that say success, and meanwhile, people are being abused. We had, we had Juliana on last week, and so okay, there's a big dragon on the stage. Genie's the big, hero, and all this. In the meantime, behind closed doors, in that scenario, there's interns being abused, being belittled, and who knows what else is going on. I mean, we're finding out more things that are happening. And again, it comes down to, it's that whole idea that we're just going to cover it. We're going to, yeah, there's smoke, but we're just praying there isn't any fire. Well, wake the flip up, for crying out loud. Where there's smoke, there's fire. You're going to find things. And so the vigilance, the lack of vigilance, the lack of caring about the victims, and caring more about what this looks like, and the damage control that needs to be done, is just bullshit. It's bullshit.
Yep.
I'm going to say it. It just
Yeah.
makes me angry. For somebody who, Brian, was molested, and it was covered. I was molested and it was covered. I could have used somebody that went, wait, there's something wrong there. It just angers me.
Yeah, you were unprotected, Mike. I had coffee with a gentleman this morning that was talking about, we were talking about this very subject, is that feeling as a young man, as a child, of being unprotected is that's
I just
tough.
think, Brian,
That's
I
hard
think of
stuff.
the years of counseling that those boys are going to have to go through and address exactly what you just said, that they felt unprotected. This church entity that was supposed to be bringing Jesus and bringing protection and bringing love and bringing, care, they did the opposite, abused them and abused them. And then, okay, we're running up the flag going, hey, everybody up top, something's wrong here. And they don't give a shit.
Yeah,
They don't give a
not our
shit.
problem.
Let's
Not our
just say
problem.
it. Let's just say it for what it is. They
Yeah,
don't give a shit.
yeah,
And same thing with Rick Lorimer and Rod. They don't give a shit. As long as their books are coming out, as long as their careers are going forward and their churches are big and they get their paycheck on, at the end of the month, they're fine, right? Doesn't matter if these people are being abused. Doesn't matter. You
yeah,
guys are jerks. You're
yeah,
jerks.
yeah. And the interesting thing about it is E. Scott Martin, after this broke, he kept his job for another 5 months, and then he left to pursue other opportunities.
Yeah.
You
I know
know,
what that's all about.
right. And as far as I know, I don't know. I looked, I couldn't find it. It's like if I'm sitting in Doug Clay's seat, first thing I'm going to do is go take a shower and probably scrub myself with alcohol. I don't know, but anyway, sorry, that was kind of a smart remark. But I'm going down there to the North Texas and South Texas district, and I'm saying, okay, all of you guys resign. This happened on your watch. You need to resign. Get out of here. You didn't do your job. I'm going into E. Scott Martin's office and I'm saying, look, pack your stuff. You're done today. And if I'm Donna Barrett at General Counsel and I really want to make a statement that reflects my understanding of what a organization that purports to be carrying on the ministry of Jesus, what I'm going to say is like, look, not only are we sorry, not only do we feel bad for you, we didn't do the things that we could have done or should have done to protect you. And I'm going to tag on the end of that. What can we do to help you today? And Mike, I'll tell you why they won't make that last statement. They won't make that last statement because they don't want to write checks. They don't want, I mean, they already have. There's been one lawsuit settled. I'm sure numerous NDAs signed. By the way, Doug Clay, why don't you release all these people from their NDAs? And there's another one that's being litigated right now. So there's lawsuits involved. So in one sense, they are paying, but there are people who are outside of those lawsuits. I'm calling on Donna Barrett. I'm calling on Doug Clay. Stay on course. Stand up and say, what can we do today to mitigate the results of our failure to do anything in 2018, from 2018 to 2023?
Right. Right. Yeah. And then let's talk about the next crisis you're going to be facing here, which is with Genie Mayo. Because I'm telling you right now, fellas and ladies, there's more. Where there's smoke, there's fire, and so there's more. And there's a lot of stories coming out about what happened in Atlanta and what happened in Sacramento, what happened in Rockford, what happened in Bellevue. I mean, there's some crazy stuff that's out there, and so what are you going to do about it? You didn't protect us. We tried to tell you that this flash in the pan was a flash in the pan, but you were mesmerized. You just got sucked right into your cult, to this cult of personality that is, Genie Mayo. And I'm telling you right now, there's more coming. So I don't know, Brian.
Yeah,
The whole thing
yeah.
just makes me angry.
Well, what we've talked about this, we've talked about patterns of behavior, we've talked about unhealthy cultures. I hope I'm gonna put on my optimist hat. Really hard for me to do that. I hope that what's going on with the AG and other denominations is going to transform how they operate. Actually, if I'm going to put on my Brian May hat, I don't believe it will. I think they're going to have to hurt a lot more until there's really material change. But to your point, we're at the tip of the iceberg right now, right? I mean, the longer we do this, Mike and I, the more stories we hear, the more people coming forward, the more people willing to come forward and tell their stories, because they're seeing, we talked a little bit about being unprotected. Now they're seeing that lid is being knocked off, and they can tell their stories, and they can say what they need to say, and they can be taken seriously and not shut down.
Right. Right.
So let's stop shutting down the victims, right? Let's hear their voices.
Right. Right. And that's what I think, with YouTube and all these different platforms that are out there now, we can tell our story. And just a warning to all of you that want to hide, they want to keep, these old school techniques of, controlling the narrative and getting to the right people and putting them aside and villainizing them. You can villainize me all you want. I'm still coming on here. I don't care what you can make stuff up. You can tell dirty stories about me if you can find them. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do. I'm not going to stop talking. I'm not going to stop being an advocate for these victims. And I'll tell you what, you can come on here. If you have a come to Jesus moment. We've said this a million times, but if you really are repentive for what you did, Genie Mayo, Rick, Gary, any of you guys, Rod, all of you, Jeremy DeWert, come on here and explain that to us. Help us with what happened to you. We are actually having next week, and I got his permission to say this. Next week, we're having Jordan Marcon on the podcast, and he is going to tell his story. And he is, Brian, as you know, he's a perpetrator and he's also a victim. And so that goes hand in hand. I mean, sometimes it does, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes when you've been in that system and you were victimized by it, you have no choice. If you're there that long, I was there 5 years and I made some mistakes. I jumped in to that pool and was cruel sometimes to people and manipulative, and I bullied certain people because that's what I was taught to do. So I was a victim, but I was also a perpetrator. Jordan Marcon definitely fits in that category where he's a perpetrator. He's admitted it, and you'll see next week that he's admitted some of his, shortcomings. And he's also talking about what happened to him, how he got sucked into this, what happened to him. And I can't wait to watch that. So be on alert for next week. Jordan's coming on.
Yeah. So I want to give an invitation right here to those of you who maybe are watching this on behalf of the Rick Lormers and the Gary Hoyts and the Rod Whitlocks and the Jeremy DeWarts of the world. Invite them on to watch that, because what I think they'll see is exactly what happened to them.
Yeah. But the difference,
And let me
Brian,
just
here's the difference. Here's the difference. I want to say this. The difference is Genie, when Jordan had his breakdown, he made a mistake and he's going to talk about it. When that happened, she villainized him. She pushed him. She couldn't control that narrative. So she dismissed him immediately. The difference between Jeremy and Rick and Rod and Gary and whoever else and Reggie Dabbs is that if Jeannie has information on them, she's able to control it. And then she uses it as leverage to control them. Allegedly. That's my opinion. Okay. But with Jordan, she couldn't. So she cut him loose as soon as she could. And that's the difference, right? That's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And I guess as part of that invitation I want to extend is that it's like we've said all along, Mike, and you've done this. I mean, you are an example of this, and I don't think I can underscore this enough. You just said a few minutes ago, you were part of that system. You participated in that. You learned and propagated some of those methods. And you had the courage one day to say, wait a minute, this is not who I want to be, and walked away from it. Again, this isn't about saying I did everything perfect in my whole life. This is about coming clean on behalf of the people who were hurt, about behalf of the people who were abused, to say, you know what? Yeah, we did this to you. We're sorry. What can we do now to help turn things around for you. That takes
Right. And I
courage.
want to say this. I want to say this, Brian. It messes with your identity. Like that's what was so hard about it was it was who Mike Donahue was. So to walk away from that, I get it that I had to walk away from a livelihood that was I was not going to be a pastor anymore. So I wasn't going to make money that way. How else am I going to make money? So thank God I had this other side. I started while I was a youth pastor, I started doing schools. And I started realizing that I can make some money, but I can also really help people in a more pure way by presenting a message and giving resources and helping them with their value. And so I went that way, but I was lucky. I had that side road that I could take off and get off on the off ramp. But there's so many people that can't, and it becomes your identity. And I remember a certain time when we were moving from Colorado to Nashville in 2020, and I had all my notes, I had boxes of stuff that I had kept from 1984 to then, of all my notes, all my books, all my things that was feeding that identity and feeding a lot of those really harmful activities and mindsets. And I was standing there looking at them, and I was going to load them into the truck. And my wife goes, "Why are you taking those with you? That's not you anymore." And I remember taking them out to the trash and putting them out on the trash. And I stood there and I waited for the trash guy to come. And I watched them put them in that truck. And I was like, I'm free. Like it took that long, Brian. It became such part of my identity. But it was so freeing. That's not me anymore, is what she said. That's not you anymore. And it's not. It's not. And again, I want to apologize to anybody I hurt. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did that. I'm sorry. But that's not me anymore. I don't want to be that. I don't want to control people. I just want to help people. I just want to help them. I want to help them see that God loves them no matter what. No matter what. No matter what. You don't have to jump through this hoop. You don't have to be this person. Just be you. God loves you right now. And that's it. That's it. What you do with that is 100% up to you.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability and your honesty. Hopefully, you can be an example to all of our former friends out there as well. And I just want to again plug Groomed.Help. Rick and I get really emotional, and both of us are in process with all of this because we've gone through it as well. And we really do want to provide another platform that is geared. We're not going to stop doing what we're doing. We're going to continue to be the barbarians at the gate, calling for this thing to come down. But we really do understand that it's very important that there is an outlet for people who can give good, solid advice on how to work your way through this and find a healthy path. Whether you want to be, as Mike said, whether you want to be spiritual or not spiritual, whether you want to be Christian or not Christian, we just want to help people have a platform where they can give good, sound advice. And a lot of these people will be experienced. They've gone through the same thing. So they can speak directly to our experience and your experience. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm glad you had that idea.
Yeah, and to plug this week's, Steve Hayes is coming on. He's the first one. We've had him on the podcast before. He should be a Christian comedian. The guy is hilarious, but he's also he's walked through this. I mean, Steve was saying this stuff 20 years ago. Steve was talking about deconstruction and putting Jesus in a box, years ago. And so he's one of those people that I really trust. So I think you'd really like his podcast. We'll put the link on the description here, and so you can go to that. So, well, Brian, this has been a really good podcast. Next week, Jordan Marcon's coming on, and so that's going to be a wing dinga, as they say in Boston. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
All right, everybody, have a great week. We'll see you next week on Groomed.Connect.